after 16 years of building the company's entire infrastructure from the ground up. The new CTO walks into my office and delivers the coldest termination I've ever witnessed. He says my skills are outdated, that the company needs fresh talent. I'm given 2 hours to pack up. As I hand over my access keys, security badge, and the documentation I've maintained for over a decade, I watch the CTO smirk. I feel invisible, disposable, like 16 years meant absolutely nothing. My name is Kitty, and Tech Vanguard Solutions wasn't just my employer, it was my life's work. I started here right out of college, 23 years old, and bursting with ambition. The company operated out of a converted warehouse in downtown Seattle back then, with exposed brick walls and exactly 23 employees crammed into an open floor plan that smelled like coffee and determination. I was the first systems engineer they hired, and I remember my interview like it was yesterday. The founder, Walter, asked me one question that mattered. He said, "Can you build something from nothing?" I told him I could. He believed me. For 16 years, I proved him right every single day. I designed and built their entire cloud infrastructure when cloud computing was still a gamble most companies wouldn't take. I created the database architecture that could scale from hundreds of users to millions without breaking. I implemented security protocols that protected client data through countless attempted breaches. I developed disaster recovery systems that saved the company 3 times when everything else failed. Every line of critical code, every server configuration, every backup protocol had my fingerprints on it. The work consumed me. I pulled 80-hour weeks during product launches. I spent Christmas Eve in the server room fixing a critical bug while my family ate dinner without me. I postponed having children because there was always one more system to build, one more crisis to solve, one more milestone to reach. My husband understood, mostly. He knew Tech Vanguard wasn't just my job. It was my identity. The company grew around the infrastructure I built. 23 employees became 100, then 300, then 800. We moved from the warehouse to a gleaming office building with a view of Puget Sound. We landed major clients, won industry awards, got written up in tech journals. Through it all, I stayed in the background. I wasn't interested in recognition. I just wanted to build great systems and mentor the next generation of engineers. And I did mentor them. Dozens of junior engineers passed through my team over the years. I taught them everything I knew. I stayed late to review their code. I explained complex concepts until they understood. I wrote recommendation letters that helped them advance their careers. Many of them are senior leaders at other companies now, and they still email me asking for advice. That always made me proud. My performance reviews were consistently excellent. Walter always made sure I knew I was valued. My salary increased steadily. I had job security, or so I thought. But about a year ago, something started shifting in the culture. The company hired consultants who talked about modernization and disruption. Board members started using phrases like fresh perspectives and new blood. I noticed it, but I didn't worry. My work spoke for itself. Then 6 months ago, everything changed. The company hired Gregory Hamilton as the new CTO. Gregory came from Silicon Valley with an MBA from Stanford and a resume full of buzzwords. He was 42, tan, and always wore expensive suits without ties. He talked constantly about agile methodologies and cutting-edge frameworks. He promised the board he would modernize our technology stack and position us for rapid growth. Everyone was impressed by his confidence and his connections. I tried to be optimistic. New leadership could be good. Maybe Gregory would bring valuable insights. I introduced myself on his first day and offered to walk him through our infrastructure. He barely looked at me. He said, "Send me the documentation. I'll review it when I have time." He never did. Gregory brought in his own team within the first month. They were all young, mostly in their 20s, fresh from coding boot camps and eager to prove themselves. They dressed like him, talked like him, used the same buzzwords. They treated our existing infrastructure like it was ancient history, something embarrassing that needed to be replaced as quickly as possible. I tried to collaborate. In meetings, I explained why certain systems were designed the way they were. I shared the hard-learned lessons from 16 years of experience. Gregory would interrupt me mid-sentence. He would say things like, "That's the old way of thinking," or, "We need to move beyond legacy approaches." The young developers would nod along with him, and I would sit there feeling like a relic. The culture shifted fast. Suddenly, experience was seen as being stuck in old ways. Innovation meant throwing out everything that came before and starting fresh with whatever framework was trending on social media. The engineers I had mentored stopped asking for my input. They were afraid to be associated with outdated thinking. I kept doing my job. I maintained the systems. I fixed problems. I documented everything meticulously, but I felt increasingly invisible. Gregory made decisions about infrastructure without consulting me. He assigned projects to his new team that directly impacted systems I had built. When things broke because they didn't understand the underlying architecture, I fixed it quietly and moved on. Then came the meeting that changed everything. It was a Tuesday morning. I was at my desk reviewing server logs when Gregory appeared in my doorway with someone from HR. His face was blank, professional, cold. He said, "Kitty, we need to talk. Let's use the conference room." I followed them, my heart already racing. You know that feeling when you sense something terrible is coming but you can't stop it? That was me, walking down the hallway to that glass-walled conference room where everyone could see in. Gregory didn't waste time. He sat across from me and said, "Kitty, we're making some changes to the engineering team structure. Your position is being eliminated effective immediately." The words hit me like a physical blow. I stared at him. "Eliminated? What are you talking about? I built this entire infrastructure." He gave me that smile, that condescending, patient smile, "And we appreciate your contributions. But the reality is, your skills are outdated. The company needs engineers who understand modern frameworks and agile development. We need people who can move fast and innovate. I'm sorry, but you're not a good fit for where we're going." 16 years. 16 years of my life, and he dismissed it in 30 seconds. The HR representative, a woman named Paula, who I had helped onboard 3 years earlier, slid a severance package across the table. She wouldn't make eye contact with me. She said, "You have 2 hours to collect your belongings. Security will escort you out. We'll need your badge, your access keys, and your laptop." I looked at the severance package. It was generous in terms of money, but there was something else. A clause buried in the legal language. A non-compete agreement that barred me from working in the tech industry for 2 years within a 50-mile radius of Seattle. "This non-compete," I said, my voice shaking. "This means I can't work anywhere. Every tech company in Seattle is within 50 miles. Paula finally looked at me. There was pity in her eyes. "Those are the terms, Kitty. If you want the severance, you sign." I turned to Gregory. "You specifically requested this, didn't you? The non-compete. You don't just want me gone. You want to make sure I can't work anywhere else." He didn't deny it. He just stood up. "You have 2 hours. Good luck with your future endeavors." That's when I understood. This wasn't just a firing. This was career assassination. Gregory wanted me completely erased, unable to compete, unable to even land on my feet somewhere else. He saw me as a threat, and he was eliminating that threat permanently. My last day at Tech Vanguard became a masterclass in humiliation. After the meeting with Gregory and HR, I returned to my desk in a daze. I stared at my computer screen, at the monitoring dashboard showing all the systems I had built running smoothly. Green lights across the board. Everything healthy. Everything working exactly as designed. And it meant nothing. I started packing my personal items into a cardboard box someone had left on my chair. A photo of my husband and me at our wedding. A small plant I had kept alive for 8 years. A coffee mug that said I turned coffee into code. 16 years of my professional life reduced to objects that fit in a single box. That's when Gregory appeared again, this time with a young man trailing behind him. The guy looked like he had walked out of a startup promotional video. Mid-20s, wearing an expensive hoodie and designer sneakers, carrying a brand new laptop covered in tech company stickers. His hair was styled in that deliberately messy way that takes effort to achieve. "Kitty," Gregory said with false cheerfulness, "I want you to meet Dylan Brooks. He's going to be taking over your responsibilities." Dylan extended his hand with a confident smile. "Great to meet you. Greg's told me a lot about the work you've done here." I shook his hand mechanically. 4 years out of college, according to the background Gregory was now sharing, worked at 2 startups that both failed. Expert in 3 different JavaScript frameworks I had never heard of. Gregory spoke about him like he was some kind of prodigy. "I need you to spend your remaining time doing a knowledge transfer to Dylan," Gregory said. It wasn't a request. Walk him through the critical systems. Make sure he has everything he needs. The irony was suffocating. I was being fired for being outdated, but suddenly my knowledge was valuable enough to demand a handover. I wanted to refuse. I wanted to walk out right then, but some deeply ingrained sense of professionalism made me nod. Gregory left us alone. Dylan pulled up a chair next to my desk, opened his laptop, and said, "Okay, so where should we start?" I took a deep breath and opened the architecture documentation I had maintained for 16 years. Hundreds of pages, detailing every system, every decision, every edge case. I started with the basics. "Our infrastructure is built on a hybrid cloud model," I began. "We use a combination of private servers for sensitive client data and public cloud for scalability. The load balancers I designed distribute traffic based on." Dylan interrupted. Yeah, load balancers. Got it. But why aren't you using Kubernetes for orchestration? That's pretty much industry standard now." "Because our client requirements are unique," I explained patiently. "We have 17 major enterprise clients with specific compliance needs. The custom load balancing system I built handles their requirements in ways that off-the-shelf solutions can't." He waved his hand dismissively. "We'll just rebuild it in Kubernetes. Modern container orchestration is way more efficient than whatever custom thing you built." I felt my jaw tighten. "Dylan, this system has been running without major issues for 8 years. It handles peak loads of 42 million transactions without breaking a sweat. Before you rebuild anything, you need to understand why it works." Sure, he said, but he was already looking at something else on his screen. "What about the database layer?" I walked him through the proprietary database sharding system I had designed. It was elegant, if I did say so myself. It automatically distributed data across multiple servers based on access patterns and load, with built-in redundancy and automatic failover. I had spent 2 years perfecting it. Dylan kept interrupting with suggestions about how he would modernize it. He talked about microservices and serverless architecture, and a dozen other trendy concepts, applying them like band-aids, without understanding the underlying problems they were meant to solve. "This is all really over-engineered," he finally said. "You've got like 5 different layers of redundancy here. That's unnecessarily complex." "Those layers of redundancy have saved this company 3 times, I said, struggling to keep my voice level. "Once during a major DDoS attack, once during a data center failure, and once when a client accidentally sent us malformed data that would have crashed everything. The complexity is there for a reason." "Right. But that's exactly the kind of outdated thinking Greg warned me about," Dylan said, with that same condescending patience Gregory used. "Modern systems are designed to fail gracefully. You don't need all this legacy complexity." I wanted to scream. Instead, I moved on to the authentication system. This was my pride and joy, a custom solution that handled our clients' unique security requirements while maintaining speed and usability. Dylan barely listened. He was typing on his laptop, probably messaging someone about how he was stuck with the old engineer and her outdated systems. I tried to explain the backup protocols. "This is critical," I said. "Every night at 2 a.m., the system runs a complete backup sequence. But there are specific edge cases you need to monitor. If a client is running a long transaction that crosses the 2 a.m. threshold, the backup system has to." "I'll figure it out," Dylan cut me off. "I'm pretty good at this stuff. I've been coding since I was 12. "Dylan, please listen. This isn't about coding skill. It's about understanding business logic and client requirements. There are failure modes that only show up under very specific circumstances, and if you don't know to look for them." "Kitty, I appreciate the download, but I've got this. Greg wouldn't have hired me if he didn't think I could handle it." I noticed he wasn't taking notes. He wasn't writing down passwords or access protocols. He wasn't documenting the specific command sequences needed for emergency recovery. He was just nodding and half listening, confident that he could figure out anything he needed to know. "What about the disaster recovery documentation?" I asked. "At least let me show you where everything is stored." "Just email me the links," he said. "I'll review it when I need to." Other colleagues walked past my desk, people I had worked with for years, people I had mentored and helped and collaborated with. Most of them avoided eye contact. A few gave me sympathetic looks, but said nothing. Nobody wanted to be seen talking to the person who had just been fired. It was like I had become contagious. Jason, one of my former mentees who now led his own team, stopped briefly. He looked genuinely upset. "Kitty, this is wrong," he said quietly. "Everyone knows it." "Thanks, Jason," I managed. "If there's anything I can do." He started. But then Gregory appeared in the hallway, and Jason quickly moved on. The 2 hours passed in a blur of forced handover and casual dismissal. Dylan asked surface-level questions and accepted surface-level answers. He had no idea how deep the systems ran, how many interconnected pieces had to work in perfect harmony, how many years of hard-learned lessons were embedded in every architectural decision. Finally, security arrived. A guard I had smiled at every morning for 6 years stood at my desk with an uncomfortable expression. "Miss Kitty, I need to escort you out." I picked up my box of personal items. Dylan was already at my desk, logging into my computer, making himself at home. As I walked toward the elevator, I passed Gregory's office. His door was open, and I could hear him on a phone call. I paused, just for a moment. "Don't worry about it," Gregory was saying to whoever was on the other end. We're doing a full system demo in 3 weeks for the Titan acquisition, $380 million. My new team has everything under control. That deadweight engineer is gone. This is going to be the smoothest demo we've ever run. My blood went cold. The Titan acquisition. I had heard rumors about it for months. A massive deal that would make everyone at Tech Vanguard rich, especially the executives, and they were planning to demonstrate the infrastructure in 3 weeks. My infrastructure. The systems Dylan had just dismissed as over-engineered legacy code. The systems he claimed he could rebuild over a weekend. They were going to demonstrate live transaction processing under massive load. I knew exactly which systems they would use, and I knew, with absolute certainty, that Dylan had no idea what he was doing. But I was locked out now. Escorted to the elevator, rode down to the lobby, walked out into the Seattle rain with my box of belongings and nowhere to go. "Don't worry about it," Gregory was saying to whoever was on the other end. "We're doing a full system demo in 3 weeks for the Titan acquisition, $380 million. My new team has everything under control. That deadweight engineer is gone. This is going to be the smoothest demo we've ever run." My blood went cold. The Titan acquisition. I had heard rumors about it for months. A massive deal that would make everyone at Tech Vanguard rich, especially the executives, and they were planning to demonstrate the infrastructure in 3 weeks. I filed for unemployment. I updated my resume for the first time in 16 years and stared at it, wondering how to explain my sudden departure. I started applying for jobs, targeting positions at tech companies across Seattle, hoping someone would value my experience. The responses were brutal. Most companies never replied. The few that did expressed interest, until they saw the non-compete agreement Gregory had forced me to sign. Then came the polite rejections. "We can't risk legal complications. Perhaps after your non-compete expires, we'll keep your resume on file." The non-compete was doing exactly what Gregory intended. It made me unemployable. My savings account dwindled. My husband, Marcus, tried to be supportive. He worked as a high school math teacher, and his salary kept us afloat, but barely. We canceled our vacation plans. We stopped eating out. We had uncomfortable conversations about how long we could maintain the mortgage payments on our house. I felt like I was drowning, but I couldn't let go. I maintained my LinkedIn profile, kept my connections active. Former colleagues at Tech Vanguard would occasionally like my posts or send brief messages. Nothing substantial. Nobody wanted to risk their job by being too friendly with me. Then, 12 days after my termination, I received a message request on LinkedIn from Jason. He wanted to connect via Signal, an encrypted messaging app. My heart rate picked up as I installed it and accepted his contact request. Jason's message appeared. "Kitty, I need to tell you what's happening. But this can't come back to me. Gregory fires anyone who questions him." I typed back, "I understand. What's going on?" "Everything is falling apart," Jason wrote. "Dylan has been making massive changes to the core infrastructure. He's ripping out your custom systems and replacing them with standard frameworks. He's convinced he's modernizing everything, but he doesn't understand how your systems work together." My chest tightened. "What kind of changes?" "Last week, he replaced your load balancing system with a default Kubernetes setup. It worked fine for 2 days. Then one of our major clients ran a big transaction batch and everything slowed to a crawl. It took us 8 hours to fix it." Dylan blamed it on legacy database issues. I knew exactly what had happened. My custom load balancer had intelligent routing that understood our clients' transaction patterns. It preemptively allocated resources based on historical behavior. A standard setup wouldn't know to do that. "What else?" I asked. The authentication layer keeps throwing weird errors, Jason continued. Dylan said your code was too complex, so he simplified it. Now about 5% of logins are failing randomly. We're getting client complaints. Gregory is covering it up, telling clients it's temporary maintenance issues. 5% login failures. That was catastrophic for enterprise software. I had spent months eliminating every edge case, every possible failure point. Dylan had undone it all in 2 weeks. What about the demo? I typed. The Titan acquisition demo. That's in less than a week now. There was a long pause. Then, Kitty, that's why I'm reaching out. I'm scared, really scared. The demo is supposed to showcase our real-time processing capabilities under massive load. But Dylan couldn't access some of the critical systems. He couldn't figure out the password protocols you set up. I had implemented a multi-layer access system for the most sensitive parts of the infrastructure. It required specific authentication sequences that weren't documented in any single place. It was a security feature, designed to prevent unauthorized access even if someone got the documentation. So what did he do? I asked, though I dreaded the answer. He disabled some of your backup and monitoring protocols. He said they were getting in the way. Kitty, if something goes wrong during the demo, we won't have any safety nets. Everything you built to catch failures is gone. I sat back in my chair, feeling sick. The Titan acquisition was worth $380 million. The demo was supposed to prove that Tech Vanguard's infrastructure could handle Titan's massive enterprise needs. They were going to process 50 million concurrent transactions in real time, showcasing the scalability and reliability of the platform. Except the platform wasn't reliable anymore. Dylan had gutted it. Jason, you need to tell someone, I typed. Tell Walter. Tell the board. They need to know what's happening before the demo. Who would believe me? I'm a mid-level team lead. Dylan is Gregory's golden boy, and Gregory has the board convinced that everything is better now that you're gone. If I speak up, I'll be fired just like you were. He was right. I knew he was right. Gregory had created a culture of fear. Questioning his decisions meant losing your job. What should I do, Kitty? Jason asked. I didn't know how to answer. Part of me wanted the demo to fail. Part of me wanted Gregory and Dylan to crash and burn spectacularly, to prove that they never should have fired me. But another part of me felt responsible for the 300 engineers who still worked there, people who had done nothing wrong and whose jobs would disappear if the acquisition fell through. I typed and deleted several responses before finally settling on document everything. Keep records of the changes Dylan made and the problems they caused. If this blows up, you'll need evidence that you tried to warn someone. Okay, Jason replied. I'm sorry, Kitty. This whole thing is messed up. You didn't deserve this. Thanks, Jason. Be careful. The conversation ended. I sat in my home office, staring at my dark laptop screen, feeling helpless and angry and scared all at once. 5 days until the demo. I tried to convince myself it wasn't my problem anymore. They fired me. They told me I was outdated. They could deal with the consequences of their own arrogance. But I couldn't stop thinking about it. I couldn't sleep. I lay awake at night imagining all the ways the demo could fail. The cascading errors. The system crashes. The red warning lights spreading across the monitoring dashboard like a disease. 3 days before the demo, at 11 p.m. on a Thursday night, I received an email. The sender was listed as anonymous. No subject line. Just an attachment. I almost deleted it. Anonymous emails are usually spam or phishing attempts. But something made me open it. The attachment was a PDF. An internal memo from Gregory to the board of directors at Tech Vanguard, dated 1 week earlier. I read it twice to make sure I understood what I was seeing. The memo bragged about reducing operational costs by eliminating expensive legacy personnel. It promised that the new engineering team, despite lower salary requirements, will exceed performance expectations. It assured the board that the Titan demonstration will showcase our modern architecture and justify the premium acquisition price. But the final paragraph made my hands shake. The demonstration will showcase our real-time data processing system handling 50 million concurrent transactions, a capability that will justify Titan's premium acquisition price and position Tech Vanguard as a leader in enterprise infrastructure. The new team is confident and prepared. This acquisition will validate all of our modernization efforts. 50 million concurrent transactions. My system could handle that. The infrastructure I had built and maintained for 16 years could handle that, with room to spare. But Dylan's modifications? The disabled backups? The simplified authentication? The replaced load balancers? I knew, with absolute certainty, that the system would fail catastrophically somewhere around 43 million transactions. That was the breaking point. That was where my custom load balancing became critical, where the backup protocols needed to kick in, where all those unnecessarily complex layers of redundancy became the difference between success and disaster. They were going to fail. In front of the Titan executives, in front of the engineers who would be evaluating every aspect of the infrastructure. And there was nothing I could do about it. I forwarded the anonymous email to a secure folder and sat in the darkness of my office, listening to the rain against the window, feeling like I was watching a car crash in slow motion. The day of the demo, I couldn't help myself. I had to know what was happening. Jason had agreed to text me updates. Nothing detailed, nothing that could be traced back to him. Just enough to let me know how it was going. At 8:30 a.m., my phone buzzed. Titan team just arrived. 12 people. They looked serious. I sat at my kitchen table with my laptop and a cup of coffee I couldn't drink. Marcus had already left for work. The house was silent except for the sound of my own breathing. 9 a.m. Gregory doing presentation in main conference. Big promises. I imagined Gregory in his expensive suit, using his confident voice, showing slides full of impressive numbers and technical buzzwords, selling the dream of a modern, scalable, revolutionary infrastructure. 9:45 a.m. Demo starting. Dylan in server room with his team. Everyone nervous. My hands were shaking. I opened my laptop and stared at the blank screen, wishing I could see the monitoring dashboard, wishing I could watch the systems in real time. 10 a.m. Processing 10 million transactions. All green so far. 10 million was easy. A standard setup could handle 10 million. The real test would come later. 10:15 a.m. 20 million. Still okay. Titan engineers taking notes. I knew what was happening in that conference room. The Titan team would be watching the massive display screens showing transaction processing in real time, numbers climbing, graphs updating, everything looking smooth and professional. Gregory would be working the room, answering questions, building confidence. 10:30 a.m. 30 million. Dylan looks confident. Gregory smiling. My coffee had gone cold. I pushed it away. 10:40 a.m. 40 million. Systems holding. This was where it got dangerous. My original architecture had been designed to handle exactly this scenario. At 40 million transactions, the load balancers would start implementing intelligent routing. They would predict resource needs based on the transaction patterns and preemptively allocate server capacity. The backup systems would warm up, ready to take over if anything failed. But Dylan had removed all of that. He thought it was unnecessary complexity. 10:45 a.m. First warning appeared. Dylan says it's normal. My heart was pounding. I knew it wasn't normal. That first warning was the system crying for help, trying to tell anyone who was listening that it was approaching capacity. 10:50 a.m. 43 million. More warnings. Gregory still smiling but looks tense. 43 million. Right where I knew it would start to break. The minutes felt like hours. I stared at my phone, waiting for the next update. 11 a.m. 45 million. Multiple errors. Dylan frantically typing. Titan engineers whispering. 11:05 a.m. 48 million. Database layer just crashed. Big screen went black. I closed my eyes. There it was. The cascade failure I had predicted. Without the proper load balancing, the database had been overwhelmed. And without the backup protocols, there was nothing to catch it. 11:08 a.m. Everything failing. Screens showing red errors. It's bad, Kitty. Really bad. 11:10 a.m. All systems red. Monitoring dashboard looks like a Christmas tree. Gregory's face is white. 11:12 a.m. Dylan just ran into conference room. Looks like he's going to throw up. I sat back in my chair, feeling a strange mix of vindication and sadness. I had been right, but being right felt hollow. 11:15 a.m. Titan CTO just stood up, asked who owns the core architecture. Nobody answered. My phone rang. Unknown number. I almost didn't answer, but something made me pick up. Is this Kitty? A woman's voice. Professional? Calm? Yes. Who is this? My name is Dr. Patricia Morrison. I'm the Chief Technology Officer at Titan Industries. I'm calling you from Tech Vanguard's office, where I'm currently watching your former colleagues fail to restart the infrastructure you built. Do you have a few minutes to talk? I sat up straight. How did you get my number? I asked someone named Jason. He seemed to think you might want to hear from me. Was he wrong? No, I said. He wasn't wrong. I sat up straight. How did you get my number? I've been the CTO at Titan Industries for 12 years, she said. Before that, I spent 20 years building enterprise infrastructure at 3 different companies. I know good architecture when I see it, and I know garbage when I see it. What I've been looking at for the past 6 months, during our due diligence on Tech Vanguard, was remarkable architecture. What I just watched fail in that conference room was garbage. I didn't know what to say. We've been monitoring Tech Vanguard's systems through their API logs as part of our evaluation, Dr. Morrison continued, standard practice for acquisitions. The infrastructure behavior we observed was sophisticated, elegant even, load balancing that seemed almost prescient, failure recovery that was seamless, security protocols that were both robust and user-friendly. Someone brilliant designed those systems. Thank you, I managed. Then about 3 weeks ago, we started seeing changes. Systems behaving erratically, performance degrading. I thought maybe it was temporary maintenance. But when today's demo failed, I demanded to see the personnel files. And guess what I found? My termination paperwork. Dated exactly 3 weeks ago, Dr. Morrison confirmed, fired for having outdated skills. The engineer who built a masterpiece got replaced by someone who turned it into a disaster in less than a month. I've seen this story too many times, Kitty. A brilliant engineer, usually a woman, builds something amazing, then gets pushed out by someone, usually a man, who doesn't understand what they have and doesn't want to admit it. Her words hit me hard. I hadn't thought about the gender aspect, but now that she mentioned it, I realized Gregory's entire new team was male. Young, male, and convinced that confidence could replace competence. "Can you fix this?" Dr. Morrison asked bluntly. "And more importantly, would you want to?" "I signed a non-compete agreement," I said. Gregory made sure I couldn't work anywhere in the tech industry for 2 years. Dr. Morrison laughed. It was a sharp, humorless sound. Non-competes, signed under false pretenses, are rarely enforceable, especially when the company is about to be acquired and the termination was clearly retaliatory. Trust me, I have a team of lawyers who would love to shred that agreement in court. Let me worry about the legal issues. I'm asking you as one engineer to another. Do you want to save your work? I stood up from my kitchen table and walked to the window. The rain had stopped. Weak sunlight was breaking through the clouds. Why would I help them? I asked. After what they did to me? You wouldn't be helping them, Dr. Morrison said. You'd be helping the 300 engineers who still work there and did nothing wrong. The people like Jason who tried to speak up. And honestly, Kitty, you'd be helping yourself. How? Because I'm prepared to make you an offer. If you can restore those systems and prove the infrastructure works the way I believe it can, Titan will proceed with the acquisition. But there's a condition. What condition? You have to be part of the deal. I sat back down. What does that mean? It means I want you to join Titan Industries as a senior principal engineer. You'll oversee the integration of Tech Vanguard's infrastructure into our ecosystem. You'll lead a team of 40 engineers. You'll report directly to me. Your salary will be $250,000 base, plus equity, plus a signing bonus that matches what you lost in severance when they fired you. $250,000. I was making $130,000 at Tech Vanguard. This was nearly double. There's more, Dr. Morrison said. As part of the acquisition terms, I'm requiring that Gregory Hamilton be terminated, with cause, forfeiting his severance package. You would essentially be his superior during the transition period. He would watch you fix what he broke, and then he would be escorted out of the building, just like he did to you. The satisfaction I felt at that image was almost overwhelming, but I forced myself to think clearly. Why me? I asked. You could hire any number of senior engineers. Because I don't have time to bring someone up to speed, Dr. Morrison said. The board at Tech Vanguard is panicking right now. We're their only serious acquisition offer, and word is already spreading in the industry about today's disaster. They're desperate. Which means you hold all the cards, Kitty. You can name your terms. I thought about Marcus and our dwindling savings. I thought about the mortgage payments we were struggling to make. I thought about 16 years of my life that Gregory had tried to erase. What exactly do you need me to do? I asked. Walk back into that building with me right now. Look the board of directors in the eye. Tell them exactly what it's going to take to earn your help. Not as someone begging for their job back, as a consultant who's about to save their entire company, as someone who knows her worth. I looked at my reflection in the window. Kitty the invisible engineer. Kitty the disposable employee. Kitty the outdated relic. No, not anymore. I'll need an hour to get ready, I said. Take 2, Dr. Morrison replied. I want you walking in there looking like the senior executive you're about to become. This is your moment, Kitty. Don't waste it being humble. I wore my best suit. The charcoal gray one I had bought for a conference 3 years ago and barely worn since. I did my makeup carefully. I straightened my spine and practiced my confident walk in the hallway of my house. Marcus came home from school early to see me off, and the pride in his eyes gave me strength. Dr. Morrison met me in the parking garage at Tech Vanguard. She was exactly what I expected. 60 years old, silver hair cut short, wearing an impeccable navy suit, and radiating the kind of confidence that comes from decades of being right. "Ready?" she asked. "Ready." We walked into the building together. The receptionist's eyes went wide when she saw me. Word had clearly spread about the demo disaster. People were gathered in small clusters, whispering. When they saw me, the whispers stopped. We took the elevator to the executive floor. The board of directors was assembled in the main conference room. Through the glass walls I could see them. Walter and 5 other board members, all looking exhausted and worried. Gregory was there too, standing in the corner, his confident smile completely gone. Dr. Morrison opened the door. Every head turned toward us. Walter stood up immediately. He was 65, gray-haired, and looked like he had aged 5 years in the past 3 weeks. "Kitty," he said, "thank God. We owe you an enormous apology." I walked into the room like I owned it. Dr. Morrison stayed close beside me. "Let's be clear about the situation," Dr. Morrison said, her voice cutting through the room like steel. "Your infrastructure is currently failing. Your acquisition is in jeopardy. The only person who can fix this in the next 72 hours is standing in front of you. So I suggest you listen very carefully to her terms." I had rehearsed this on the drive over. I knew exactly what I wanted. "First," I said, looking Walter directly in the eye, "complete restoration of my access to all systems, effective immediately." Walter nodded. "Done." I had rehearsed this on the drive over. I knew exactly what I wanted. One of the board members, a woman named Susan, spoke up. "You'll have it in writing by end of day." Third, full back pay for the 3 weeks I was unemployed, plus $50,000 in compensation for emotional distress and damage to my professional reputation. "Agreed," Walter said without hesitation. Fourth, the non-compete agreement is voided and destroyed. I want to watch you shred it. "I'll do it myself," Walter said. "Agreed," Walter said without hesitation. Gregory's head snapped up. "You can't do this. I have a contract. Your contract has a clause about termination for gross negligence and destruction of company assets," Susan said coldly. "I'd say sabotaging a $380 million acquisition qualifies. You're done, Gregory. Security will escort you out." Gregory opened his mouth to argue, but Walter cut him off. "It's over. You're fired. Leave now." Gregory's head snapped up. "You can't do this. I have a contract." I didn't gloat. I just watched him go. Sixth, I continued once Gregory was gone, a public acknowledgement of my role in building this company's infrastructure. I want a company-wide email and a post on the corporate blog. I want the engineering community to know what I built. "You'll have it," Walter promised. Seventh and final, my consulting fee for the restoration work, $100,000, paid up front before I touch a single line of code. Walter looked at the other board members. They nodded. "Agreed," Walter said. "All of it. Whatever you need, Kitty. Just please, save this company." I felt Dr. Morrison's hand briefly touch my shoulder, a gesture of support and approval. Walter looked at the other board members. They nodded. "Done," Walter said, and just like that, I was back. They gave me the corner office that had belonged to Gregory. I immediately had his motivational posters taken down and replaced with my architecture diagrams. Jason and his team of 8 engineers joined me within the hour, and I could see the relief on their faces. "Okay," I said, gathering everyone around the conference table. We have 72 hours to restore full functionality and prepare for a second demo. I need to know everything Dylan broke. Don't sugarcoat it. I want the complete damage report. The list was worse than I expected. Dylan had replaced the custom load balancers, simplified the authentication layer, disabled backup protocols, removed monitoring systems, and modified the database sharding logic. He had left the infrastructure held together with digital duct tape. "We're going to fix all of it," I said, "and we're going to do it right. This is going to be a long 3 days, but at the end of it, we're going to have the best infrastructure demonstration Titan has ever seen." I rolled up my sleeves and got to work. The first priority was the load balancing system. I rebuilt it from my original specifications, but I also implemented improvements I had been planning before I was fired. Better resource prediction algorithms, faster failover mechanisms, more intelligent traffic routing. Jason worked beside me, and I watched the understanding dawn on his face as he saw how the pieces fit together. "This is beautiful," he said at one point, looking at the code. "I never really understood how it all connected before." "That's because nobody took the time to explain it," I said. "When I'm done here, I'm going to document every decision and teach all of you exactly why things work the way they do. No more black boxes. No more mystery systems." We worked through the night. I ordered pizza for the team and made sure everyone took breaks, but I barely slept myself. I was in my element, doing what I did best, and it felt like coming home. By the second day, we had restored the core systems. The authentication layer was rebuilt and tested. The backup protocols were back online. The monitoring dashboard showed healthy green lights across the board. On the third day, I ran stress tests. I pushed the system harder than it would ever be pushed in real life. 50 million transactions, 60 million, 70 million. Everything held. The young engineers on the team watched in awe. They started asking questions, real questions, about architecture decisions and design patterns. I took the time to answer every single one. "Why did you use this particular algorithm for resource allocation?" one asked. "Because I tested 7 different approaches over 2 months, and this one had the best performance under variable load conditions." "Let me show you the data." I turned every fix into a teaching moment. I wanted them to understand not just what I had built, but why I had built it that way. On the afternoon of the third day, as we were running final tests, Jason pulled me aside. "Kitty, there's something you should know," he said quietly. "I got a message this morning from Dylan's former assistant, Amanda. She wants to talk to you. She says she has information about Gregory." "What kind of information?" "She wouldn't say over email, but she sounded scared, said it was important." I met Amanda in a coffee shop 2 blocks from the office. She was 24, nervous, clutching a folder like her life depended on it. "Thank you for meeting me," she said. "I don't know if this matters anymore, but I thought you should know." She slid the folder across the table. Inside were printed emails, dozens of them, between Gregory and someone named Marcus Chen, who apparently worked at a competing company called Data Core Systems. I read through them, my anger building with each page. Gregory had been planning to sabotage the Titan acquisition from the beginning. Datacore had offered him a CEO position if he could tank Tech Vanguard's value and make them desperate enough to sell at a discount to Datacore instead. Dylan had been in on it. They had deliberately broken the systems to make the first demo fail. "Why are you showing me this?" I asked Amanda. "Because what he did to you wasn't right," she said. "And what he planned to do to everyone else was criminal. I kept copies of everything because I was afraid he'd try to blame me if it all fell apart." But now that he's gone and you're back, I thought you should have this. Maybe it helps, maybe it doesn't, but at least you'll know the truth." I thanked her and took the folder directly to Dr. Morrison and Walter. They read through it with increasingly dark expressions. "This is corporate espionage," Dr. Morrison said. "We need to turn this over to our legal team immediately." "Agreed," Walter said. "But first, let's make sure we ace this demo. The best revenge is success." The rescheduled demo took place on a Thursday morning, exactly 1 week after the disaster. The Titan team returned, skeptical but willing to give us one more chance. Dr. Morrison had assured them that changes had been made. She didn't tell them I was back. She wanted it to be a surprise. The conference room was packed. The board of directors, the Titan executives, engineering teams from both companies, even some of the junior developers who had never seen me work before. And this time I wasn't in the server room. I was front and center, presenting my own work. I turned every fix into a teaching moment. I wanted them to understand not just what I had built, but why I had built it that way. I've spent the past 72 hours restoring those systems to full functionality and implementing additional improvements. What you're about to see is infrastructure operating exactly as designed. I walked them through the architecture. I explained the custom load balancing system and why it outperformed standard solutions. I detailed the authentication layer and its security features. I described the backup protocols and disaster recovery systems. I spoke clearly, passionately, answering every technical question with the depth that only comes from truly understanding your own creation. Dr. Morrison watched me with a slight smile. She knew exactly what I was doing. I wasn't just demonstrating technology. I was demonstrating expertise. "Let's begin the live demonstration," I said. The transaction processing started. Numbers climbed on the massive display screens. 10 million, 20 million, 30 million. Everything was smooth. Green lights across the monitoring dashboard. 40 million transactions. The point where it had failed before. The system didn't even strain. 50 million, the original target. All systems green. I looked at Dr. Morrison. She nodded. "Let's see how far we can push it," I said. 60 million transactions. Over the following weeks, the acquisition moved forward smoothly. The legal team pursued action against Gregory and DataCore for corporate espionage. The lawsuit was eventually settled out of court, but Gregory's reputation in the industry was destroyed. He wouldn't work in tech again. 60 million, 70 million. The infrastructure performed flawlessly. "Let's see how far we can push it," I said. 60 million transactions. I smiled. Finally, someone asking the right questions. One of the Titan engineers, a young man named Christopher, raised his hand. "Can you explain how the load balancer is predicting resource needs? I'm seeing allocation happening before the transaction load actually hits those servers." I pulled up the code on the screen and walked through it. Christopher and several other Titan engineers took notes furiously. We ran the demo for 90 minutes, pushing the system in every way possible. We simulated server failures, network outages, and data corruption. The backup systems handled everything gracefully. I smiled. Finally, someone asking the right questions. Dr. Morrison stood and shook my hand. "That's the infrastructure we want to acquire. Welcome to Titan, Kitty." "Good morning," I said, standing at the front of the room with a confidence I had never felt before. "My name is Kitty, and I'm the senior infrastructure engineer who designed and built the systems you're about to see. For those of you who weren't here last week, let me give you some context. The demo you witnessed was a failure, because critical systems had been modified by someone who didn't understand them. The other board members nodded in agreement. Even the tech vanguard engineers who had avoided me during my firing approached to congratulate me. Jason hugged me. "You did it. You actually did it." "We did it," I corrected. "Your team was essential." "Good morning," I said, standing at the front of the room with a confidence I had never felt before. "My name is Kitty, and I'm the senior infrastructure engineer who designed and built the systems you're about to see. For those of you who weren't here last week, let me give you some context. The demo you witnessed was a failure because critical systems had been modified by someone who didn't understand them. I transitioned to Titan Industries as a senior principal engineer. My new office overlooked Elliott Bay, with floor-to-ceiling windows and enough space for a whole team to meet comfortably. I led a group of 40 engineers overseeing the integration of Tech Vanguard's infrastructure into Titan's massive ecosystem. My first major initiative was establishing a mentorship program. I remembered how invisible I had felt, how my expertise had been dismissed. I was determined that no engineer on my team would ever feel that way. I held weekly architecture reviews where junior engineers could present their work and ask questions. I created documentation that explained not just what the systems did, but why they were designed that way. I made sure credit was given where it was due. 6 months into my new role, I received a LinkedIn message from Dylan. It was long and rambling, but the core was an apology. He admitted he had been in over his head. He said he had let Gregory manipulate him, and he regretted everything. I read it twice, then responded briefly. "I appreciate the apology. I hope you learned something from the experience. Best of luck in your future endeavors." I didn't need his apology for closure. I had already moved on. One afternoon, I was in my office reviewing architecture plans for Titan's next major infrastructure expansion when Susan, one of the board members from Tech Vanguard, stopped by. She was now on Titan's board as part of the acquisition. "I wanted to thank you again," she said, "and to apologize personally. I should have questioned Gregory's decision to fire you. I should have looked deeper into what was happening. I failed you as a board member. You're here now," I said. "That's what matters." "I've been thinking a lot about what happened," Susan continued, "about how easy it was for Gregory to convince us that new was always better, that experience was the same as being outdated. We almost destroyed this company because we couldn't tell the difference between innovation and destruction. A lot of companies make that mistake," I said. "The key is learning from it." She nodded and left. I turned back to my work, but her words stayed with me. That evening, I had dinner with Marcus at our favorite restaurant. We were celebrating. The signing bonus from Titan had allowed us to pay off our mortgage entirely. We were finally financially secure in a way we had never been before. "You did it," Marcus said, raising his glass. "You proved them all wrong." "I proved myself right," I corrected. "That's different." "How so?" "Because this was never about them. It was about me finally understanding my own worth. For 16 years, I let my work speak for itself. I stayed quiet. I stayed humble. I thought if I just did great work, that would be enough. But it wasn't enough. I had to learn to advocate for myself, to demand respect, instead of hoping someone would notice I deserved it. Marcus smiled. "I'm proud of you." "I'm proud of me too," I said. And I meant it. The next morning, I received a message from a junior engineer on my team named Sophie. She was 26, brilliant, and constantly doubting herself. Her message read, "Thank you for taking time yesterday to explain that architecture decision about the caching layer. I finally understand why you built it that way. You're an amazing teacher, and I hope someday I can design systems half as elegant as yours." I typed back, "You already design elegant systems. You just need to trust yourself more. That's what good engineers do. We build systems that last, and we teach others to do the same. Keep asking questions. Keep learning. You're going to do great things." I hit send and sat back in my chair. On my desk was a framed photo I had brought from home. It showed my old team at Tech Vanguard, back when the company had just 23 employees, all of us gathered around a single server rack in that converted warehouse. We looked so young, so hopeful, so ready to build something amazing. I had built something amazing. And when it almost fell apart, I was the only one who could put it back together. That knowledge was worth more than any salary or title. I turned back to my computer and opened the architecture document for our next project. This one was ambitious, bigger than anything I had done before. But I wasn't intimidated. I was excited, because I finally understood something fundamental. Expertise isn't about age or trendiness, or knowing the latest framework. It's about depth of knowledge, breadth of experience, and the wisdom to know when to use which tool. It's about building systems that solve real problems, not just systems that look good in presentations. Gregory had called me outdated, but the truth was, I wasn't outdated. I was seasoned. I was tested. I was proven. And now, finally, I was seen. Have you ever had your expertise dismissed or felt invisible at work, only to later prove your true value? How did you handle it? I'd love to hear your stories in the comments below. If this story resonated with you, please hit that like button and subscribe for more real stories about workplace challenges and triumphs. Share this with anyone who's ever felt undervalued at their job. They need to know their worth isn't determined by people who can't see it. Thank you so much for listening. And remember, your expertise and experience are valuable. Don't let anyone convince you otherwise. Until next time, keep building amazing things and standing up for yourself.